Hot Mike with Dom Izzo.
Really? Really, Dom?
No. I like what Dom's doing.
Okay.
Dom Izzo.
Jeez, come on, Dom. What do you think I am, a magician?
Yeah, I'm fired up, Dom. What else could I say?
Absolutely. It was great to get on the field, and then Dom came up to me, and I'm trying to walk away from me. I just wanted to enjoy myself out there.
Hot Mike.
Great job.
There's got to be some kind of intelligent question about something. Is
Hot Mike. Hot Mike. On the networks of WDAY.
You know, if it's not about sports, I find it very hard to concentrate.
Here's Dom Izzo. Dom Izzo.
Good Thursday morning, everybody. I start this show a bit subdued for an obvious reason for those of us that work in the broadcasting industry in this part of the world. Late last night, found out some really sad news. And for a guy that I met once, listened to him all the time, former UND hockey player turned broadcaster Travis Dunn, that tragically and suddenly passed away yesterday, age of 65. Travis, for many that probably watch or listen to our show, know that played hockey for UND in the early 80s, part of a national championship team there. Went and partnered with WDAZ legend Pat Sweeney on television for over a decade, and had been hosting, Saturday morning hockey show on 740 The Fan for years. And this year, moved back into the booth with the legendary Tim Hennessy to be calling radio games for UND. And I know he had helped out with Midco with our friend and colleague Jory Norstead, calling games there. Did a few high school games. Love the sport. I mean, you talk about some people that embody certain sports. Travis was that with hockey. And like I did not know him well. I met him once in passing, and I think Tim Hennessy summed it up best here. He's a kind and gentle man who loved UND hockey and everything around it. He just loved hockey at every level and will be greatly missed. And that is there's nothing I can add to that other than just the thoughts to his family and friends, and will be missed for his enthusiasm about the sport. It was there evident every time that you heard him come on the air. And that was none more evident than just when you listen to his show, listen to a broadcast, it just came out. So I just wanted to make sure we started our show and paid some respect there for a guy that has been on the radio for a long time here in the Fargo-Moorhead area, to people that listen to UND hockey. It's just a really sad deal. And not that it happens at any particular time. UND doesn't play this weekend. I can't even imagine how difficult that would have been if they had a broadcast to do this weekend, how that would have gone. But doesn't make his passing any easier. So I wanted to just pass our condolences along, hearing that. Late last night, really before I went to bed, I saw this, the news, and texted with a few people last night, and just a really awful, tragic deal. So condolences to his family, to the UND hockey family, to people that loved listening to his show. Just a guy that loved and embodied the sport. And just wanted to pass that along here before we start our show today. There is no easy segue to begin our show. I am Dom Izzo, host of our show, by the way. Welcome to Hot Mike for a Thursday morning, second day of February, Groundhog Day. Evidently, the groundhog saw a shadow. Not that it matters much for us in this part of the world anyway. We're guaranteed another 6 more months of winter is the joke around here, but it ain't going anywhere for a little bit, especially with today's temperature. So I will reiterate again that the spring season, trying to start it in March in North Dakota, is a folly. Move everything back, and you can have a drawn-out winter season, especially when we're going to add another couple of state tournaments in, and then you can have a full and complete spring season by not starting it in March and not starting practice in March where nothing is going to happen. With that said, a busy day in front of us, including we've got hoops tonight here on Extra with the Bison women set to take on South Dakota. We'll preview that in full over the length of our show here today, as Jory Collins will join us coming up in our second hour. The Bison men, as we chatted yesterday with Dave Richmond, on the road tonight in South Dakota, in Vermilion. I get it with the mirror scheduling. The Jackrabbit men to host UND tonight, and the UND women will welcome in South Dakota State. UND and NDSU both on the women's side are unbeaten at home. If that streak continues this weekend, then we've got something to talk about come Monday about the Summit League race. Because that would mean that each of the teams will have beaten South Dakota State, and the Jackrabbits right now have dusted everybody in the Summit League. And I mean dusted everybody. So that will be a talking point if it happens. We've got a long way to get to, but we'll discuss that coming up in just a little bit. We'll begin with last night's Timberwolves game, hosting Golden State at Target Center. Our EP, Eric Bonnell, was actually at the game last night, blowing off his hot mic duties today. Everybody gets a day off, which is good. And boy, he got treated to a heck of a basketball game at Target Center last night. And it did not start well. Like a typical Timberwolves game when you're facing that guy. You're facing Steph Curry and Golden State, where this basket here at the end of the first half, you think, all right, well, the Warriors are going to do this and probably blow out the Wolves. But Minnesota rallied. D'Angelo Russell with a step-back three makes it a 102-101 game. Russell, who I have lambasted, many others have, for his late game performances. I mean, that's as pure as it gets right there to make this a one-point game. Wolves get a rebound. Naz Reid. How about Naz Reid in transition lays it up to get the Wolves a one-point lead. Now 108-107. Naz the fake and drills the three. Target Center going crazy. The Wolves are up 2. Golden State comes right by. I don't know how you don't stop that as Curry drives and scores with ties the game up at 110. Curry had a chance there to give the Warriors the lead, missed the shot there. The Wolves get the rebound, but this is definitely not what you wanted at the end. I don't know what that play was. So we go to overtime. In overtime, Anthony Edwards driving, scoring, improbable shot there. This was the highlight of the game. Reed misses, gets his own board, and jams it home to send Target Center into a frenzy. That gave Minnesota a 2-possession lead. Nobody boxed him out. I don't know what they were doing here. Naz throws it down. That made it a 5-point Timberwolves lead. This is about, we remember the playoff run last year where it was intense. People were pumped up about Wolves basketball. It reached another level, I thought, last night with Golden State there. And with this kind of finish against a team that the Warriors had won 3 in a row coming in. And Minnesota wins it 119-114 is the final as they knock off Golden State in overtime and get to 2 games over 500 and shake off the nasty loss they had Monday night against Sacramento, because you could maybe snowball these in a row with a bad game that you had on Monday, again, against a good team, and then facing a red-hot team in Golden State who's thinking they're starting to put it together. The Wolves come out and play like they did last night. Russell had 29, Edwards 27, Naz Reid for 24. Gobert did not play last night. And as we update you each and every day now in the Western Conference standings when the Wolves play and how everything fluctuates like an accordion in this conference because of how tight things are, the Wolves went from 9th to 6th by winning last night. It's just fascinating how this is going to play out. So they went from out of the play-in to into the top 6 and actually tied with Dallas in win percentage as they've played 2 more games than the Mavericks. The Mavericks have 2 games at hand on the Wolves. Golden State drops to the 7th spot. The Suns got obliterated last night by Atlanta. Then the Jazz. Then the Pelicans hold the final play-in spot with the Blazers just on the outside, and then Oklahoma City and the Lakers after that. It's just going to be this kind of wild and crazy ride to the finish line in the NBA Western Conference as the Wolves are going to they wrap up this 6-game homestand here over the next couple games. They have Orlando coming in Friday, and the Magic, their record will not show, but they've actually played some better basketball as of late. And then it's the Nuggets on Sunday, and Denver's not messing around. Denver's the best team in the West. And then you got to go to Denver after that. This is the schedule coming up to the All-Star break because the Wolves are going to play quite a bit on the road here after this homestand wraps. They go to Denver, Utah, Memphis, and Dallas. Their final game for the All-Star break is back at Target Center to take on Washington. So, crucial stretch here, and just we don't know anything about Cat's return. He was on the bench last night. I know the last few games he hasn't been there, but we're nearing at the end of this. We're just over 2 months now he's been out of the lineup. He got hurt at the end of November. So we're at 2+ months without Cat, and it doesn't seem like a return is imminent. Like another month could be added on to this without Karl Anthony Towns. But that was a big win last night. I think the best way to describe that I saw was scrappy, and that was exactly what I thought of how they played last night. That dunk was something else from Naz Reid in front of a packed house, and we'll see. That was a nice win for the Timberwolves. As, again, they go from 9th to 6th in the West after the win last night. Also going on yesterday as we visited with Bison head football coach Matt Enster in the show about the Senior Bowl, day 2 of practice yesterday in Mobile. And it's not often that the offensive linemen get featured on television ever, not even in games. But yesterday during Senior Bowl practice, one did. And that, of course, would be Bison All-American Cody Mauch, who was all over the Senior Bowl coverage yesterday, and rightfully so. We'll show you some of his standout plays that he had yesterday during practice. He was sharp. He actually played a bit at center. You'll see here snapping the ball, which we talked about. We played that soundbite when I interviewed him late last week before he went to Mobile. You'll remember on Tuesday he worked exclusively at left guard. Yesterday, he's there snapping the ball, which, again, never played center in high school or college. Got some snaps in before practice, and then he went to work at guard. I mean, I'm not a great offensive line mind. I'm not going to sit here and break down every play, but I can tell you from what the eye see, that's pretty good there. Didn't let the guy get past you. Here at center, again, looks pretty good to me for a guy that's never done it before, especially at that spot, that it looks like he held his own. This was another really good play here. This is what had the scouts really impressed with against a guy from Georgia Tech who's certainly going to get drafted high, that Cody was fairly good there. I want to play you a quick snippet here from the NFL Network, their montage here. And guys, we can back this up because there's audio with this. Listen to what the NFL Network commentators were saying about what he did yesterday. This is from Cody and the NFL Network yesterday.
Trying to catch passes. Loved it. Going up and high pointing the football.
Look at was he river dancing when he went through there?
Is that what you call that?
Looked pretty good.
These are good reps, one good rep after another, and moving at all different positions. That's really good against Keon White.
Okay, let's just call it, right? He's going to get drafted and be a plug-and-play right away guard for some
100%. I think he can play center, too.
Yeah.
A plug-and-play player right away. You heard that's from Charles Davis. Daniel Jeremiah, of course, is the NFL Network draft guru. Their Mel Kiper says they could play center as well. So it certainly seems like Cody has done what he's needed to do so far through the first 2 days. Another day of practice today. Today's the final day of practice. They'll day off tomorrow, and then the game on Saturday. And as we have alluded to in the past, that the money days, yesterday, Tuesday, and today. After that, everybody gets out of Dodge. In terms of the scouts, the coaches, they're not going to be at the actual game on Saturday. And from all intents and purposes, it has gone well. Does that mean he's improved his draft stock? I don't know. You cannot gauge anything off social media on that because there are too many people who have no idea what they're talking about. Just watching, as we showed you those highlights, and I'm not going to tell, I would tell you right now, if there was something poor to show, we would have shown that as well. It's gone well. So we'll see what happens today. The final practice I mentioned comes up at 11:30 this morning, and we'll see. I think his stock has gone up. That's just the message that I've got on it. It seems like Cody has done well for himself this week in Mobile. We got a fun show coming up for you. Speaking of nine-man football, where Cody Mauck hails from, the Bison signed another nine-man they hope is gem yesterday during the late signing period. A.J. Hines from New Salem, North Dakota. His head football coach, state champion Steve Kleinjan, will join us coming up at 9:35 to chat about A.J. and what he potentially can bring to the Bison and the impact that seeing a Cordell Volson and now a Cody Mauck go through this for a guy that lives and breathes nine-man football, what that has done over the last couple of years. That's coming up at 9:35. Jory Collins will join us in his usual Thursday time slot. North Dakota State women's basketball head coach, the Bison, to take on South Dakota tonight at the Shack, a game you'll see right here on Extra. We'll preview that. I'm sure he's going to gloat about his Kansas City Chiefs returning to the Super Bowl. We'll do that coming up at 10 o'clock. And at 10:35, we'll introduce you to Julie Berntson, middle school teacher in Detroit Lakes. A really, really neat story about a school project that she had for her students. One of her students reached out, wanted to ask and meet Heaven Hamling, and they made that happen earlier this week. We'll discuss that with Julie about a really cool story. That's coming up before we say goodbye here on this Thursday. So we are off and rolling. We'll take a break on a chilly Thursday. Hot Mic returns after this on WDAY Extra and Inforum.com. Welcome back. Steve Kleinjan, state champion head football coach from the Holsteins of New Salem, coming up in about 15 minutes' time. We're into the schedule season as well, where TV announcements will come about the upcoming college football season, which is another whole season until itself. We found out this morning the FCS kickoff game will take place in week 0, which this year will be August 26th, back in Montgomery, Alabama, which that has been the site of it since, 2017, the last time, the year after the Bison played in the game. It'll be Mercer and North Alabama will play in the game. North Alabama, which of course came up here in 2018, now is a fully fledged Division I program. Their transition is over. New football coach there, too. Mercer, you remember, we talked about them this past season. They were knocking on the door, they thought, for an FCS playoff bid. I think they finished 7-4, if I remember correctly, and were left out of the tournament, as they should have been. They did not, to me, earn enough quality wins to get in. But two teams in the South, obviously, North Alabama, being right there, and Mercer located in Macon, Georgia, that, they went 7-4 last year. Get in. But I remember writing this, and I wish our old Bison Media blog was still up, because shortly after the 2016 game, I remember writing and saying that the FCS kickoff is pretty much done, because this was a total ESPN creation, in 2014 when they brought it around with Sam Houston and Eastern Washington played in the first one. That was in August of 2014, which was a great game. I think Eastern ended up scoring 50-some-odd points in that game like they always do. But a lot of attention, and it was the only game in town. No other games. The following year, the Bison got invited to play, and they were scheduled to open that season at Montana, and they moved the game up a week to week 0. ESPN, middle of the day, that Saturday, Brent Musburger, Jesse Palmer, Maria Taylor. That was the announcing crew in Missoula. Big time rating. Again, it was the only game in town. And guess what happened? The big boys saw this and said, well, wait a minute. We can get it on this. Why are we letting the FCS guys get all the attention? And what ended up happening? The following year, the Bison got invited back. They hosted the game against Charleston Southern, which, by the way, has some historic value to it. It was the first overtime game in the history of the Fargo Dome, which is kind of a neat notation for that. The Bison ended up playing back-to-back overtime games that season. Anyway, I digress, but also that day, there were about 4 or 5 other games being played, a few other FCS games as well. And the cat was out of the bag. I mean, the horse was out of the barn, whatever, euphemism you want to use there. The ESPN saw the value of, well, we can put a couple games on here and teams want to play. So the following year, they moved the game to Montgomery, Alabama, sort of a central location for it, so to speak. The following year was Jacksonville State and Chattanooga. Then Jacksonville State played in 18 against North Carolina A&T. Youngstown State got in a game against Samford in 19. In 2020, the COVID year, you remember, it was Central Arkansas against Austin Peay, which was, I think, the first game of the college football season. And remember, because Central Arkansas came up here to play the Bison, and NDSU's one game that fall. And then last year was Jacksonville State and Stephen F. Austin. So it's dropped off in terms of quality, and if you want me to pick, I'm saying I'm picking on Mercer in North Alabama. I'm fine with that. They're in Florence, by the way. But the week 0 has now totally been taken over by the big boys, and they make no apologies for it. Just looking right now, week 0 this year, Notre Dame is playing. Last year, remember, was Nebraska and Northwestern played in Dublin. This year, Notre Dame plays Navy in Dublin. That game on NBC. Ohio plays San Diego State. UTEP against Jacksonville State. Again, these aren't premier matchups. The Navy-Notre Dame game is. San Jose State's playing USC. USC and Notre Dame are playing in week 0. So we've come a long way in less than a decade when week 0, just to be the little nook and cranny for FCS football, has now been completely hijacked by the FBS, because there is a need for programming at the end of the year. Remember, just a couple of years ago, was it 2021? Miami and Florida played in week 0, I thought. Let me double check on that. And College Game Day was there for that game. Yeah, just let's look here. Yeah. That was, gosh, it was that long ago. 2019. Florida and Miami played in week 0, which I could tell you was definitely televised on ESPN. Yeah, in 2016, Cal played Hawaii. These are just FBS games. Cal played Hawaii. So, again, the Bison weren't the only game. That game was in Australia that particular day. And then it's been off and going ever since. So the little niche that the FCS created was stolen not too long after by the FBS, and now the FCS kickoff game, which is I thought a great idea in theory. I can tell you NDSU did not enjoy their 2 times in it whatsoever. It made their team come back even earlier. That camp started even earlier. I think in 2015, they started camp like July 30th. Was NFL training camps just started. The Bison had opened up camp as well to get ready for that game against Montana. That they didn't want to ever do that again. Now, it's funny I say that because week 0 in the not-too-distant future is probably going to become week 1 when the college football playoff fully expands. I think not for the first iteration of it in 2024, but probably by 2026, there's a good chance that the calendar is moved and we are starting football. I remember I was talking with Patty Viverito about this, and I asked her actually on our show before we went down to Frisco about week 0 becoming the new start of the season. And I think there's probably a good chance of that happening, specifically because if college football wants to get out of the way of the NFL, which there's probably some smart moves behind that, knowing what the NFL's done on Saturdays over the last couple of years, then perhaps starting the college football season is not the end of the world. It might be to some that associate Thanksgiving weekend with rivalry weekend. The Thanksgiving weekend means it's the game with Ohio State and Michigan. It means the Iron Bowl with Alabama and Auburn. Suddenly those games are a week earlier if you're starting earlier. But again, has tradition meant anything in college football over the last 5 or 6 years? Nope. So don't be surprised if that ends up happening. But a moment of silence for week 0 for what it meant in the FCS kickoff, because now it is long gone from what the idea was about 7-8 years ago. Let's take a break. We come back. We'll visit with Steve Kleinjan from New Salem. Talk about his standout player, A.J. Hines, signing yesterday at North Dakota State. If the Bison found another 9-man gem, we'll do that when Hot Mike returns right after this. Bison and USD coming up later tonight here on WDAY Extra. We mentioned yesterday as National Signing Day came and went. The Bison were able to add 10 guys for the class of 2023. It was a busy day all over the place. It's so odd because December gets all the hype, but it's still a big day in February for Division II, Division III, NAIA teams that are signing guys all over the state. But one name that caught our attention yesterday, and we visited with Matt Entz about it, was A.J. Hines from New Salem, North Dakota, part of the state champion Holsteins that won the 9-man championship in a thriller in overtime against Cavalier. Our pleasure to welcome on, making his Hot Mic debut with us. I hate the fact we've been on 4 years. We haven't had Coach Steve Kleinjan join us, and we've had other 9-man coaches. You know, Zier's on all the time. I know he's probably in your ear about this, so the 9-man coaches always bring it, so I expect nothing less from you here this morning.
I got a little coaching, like I mentioned earlier, from Coach Zier last night, and I'm going to bring it the best I can. That's for sure. All
right, so I haven't talked to you since the game, so tell me about the end of regulation. What are you telling you? You're going to go to overtime in the Dakota Bowl. What was that like on the sideline?
Well, into the game, obviously, in the second half after being down. And so to get that opportunity to force the game into overtime, we felt like, we had a little momentum and maybe a little bit of an advantage going into that extra stanza. We had played Cavalier in overtime the year before in a semifinal game in New Salem where they beat us in overtime. And so it wasn't a completely new experience for either teams. And I really think that just kind of as our kids showed the entire game, we just believed that, we were going to do what we needed to win the game, and that's just the kind of the attitude and that intestinal deal that those kids had, and there was no way that in my mind that they were going to not come away with that win. I mean, it just was one of those deals where I just felt like we were at the right place at the right time, and the kids executed and got the job done.
Okay, I apologize for the obvious question, but how big is it to get the ball first in overtime?
Well, it's huge. I mean, that you get, I mean, we get the opportunity to score, to get the 2-point conversion, and put that pressure on them so that they know that if they do score, that they've got to get 2-point. Some people go on defense first. I mean, it's a back and forth, but the idea is that once we got that score, and I think it was on second down, and then we got the 2-point conversion pass from Wolding to Kuhn to get us up by that 8-point lead. That's huge, Jim, because I think the pressure falls directly on them in those 4 downs.
Did you have something specifically called up for the overtime, like for the touchdown? Was that something, hey, we had saved away that we think this may work?
Actually, Luke Stern, who's my offensive coordinator, one of my assistant coaches, he kind of stayed with what we were doing. Brock Norton, our sophomore running back. I mean, in Ty Wolding at quarterback, we were just going to continue to pound. We believe 4 downs to get 10 yards is something that that we can do. The 2-point conversion was a little wrinkle that we put in for the Kuhn kid, our tight end. Yeah. It worked perfectly, and the kids executed it well. And that was something that turned out very well for us.
Tell me emotionally why you're sitting there, you're helpless on when Cavalier has to go for 2. I mean, what's going through your mind on that kind of play?
Well, I look at there's a video of me on the sidelines, and people say, "What are you doing?" And I'm not sure what I was doing. I had my hands out in front of me, and I was watching the play. And I mean, it's just that moment, and then you never know if there's going to be a late flag or something's happened that you didn't see, so you kind of have that hesitation. And then when you finally realize, that the game is over and you won a state championship, I mean, it's just I gotta tell you, it's an unbelievable feeling.
Well, just that emotion, like after the game you see the final play. What was you remember the first person you hugged, or what do you remember after?
Well, I remember picking my hat up off the turf at the Fargo Dome and turning, and there was my offensive line coach, Ben Krinkstead, who's about a 280-pound, 6'3" guy, and I kind of just jumped, and he caught me underneath the armpits and lifted me up in the air, and then dropped me. And then, of course, I found my other assistant coaches, and because the credit for the work they've done for me over the years, and just had a quick hug with those guys, and then it was just a matter of finding those kids and having the opportunity to celebrate that experience with them is really something I'll never forget. That's for sure. You
guys have been there in 16 and 18 and came up on the other end just to get over the hump. Just even tell me now over the last few months what reaction has been like back home.
Well, it's been great. I mean, we've got a community that is very strong in support of athletics, and particularly football is one of those deals that Friday night isn't an event here. Yeah. It's a social activity. We've got the grill going and all that stuff out at the football field. And we come out in the horse trailer, and we get great crowds out here. And so the weather kind of dropped our crowd down a little bit, but from what I've heard, a couple of the establishments downtown had some pretty good attendance, and things got pretty wild when we won the championship.
Okay, I had more questions from people asking me, "Where's the horse trailer? Why didn't it come?" Like I had more people asking me about that. What was the deal this year?
In 16 we brought it out because it was kind of a theme within that story, and 16 honestly was a year where we knew we had a good football team, but to make it to the Fargo Dome, that year was quite an accomplishment. I thought maybe we were a year away. And so we just decided to go ahead and do it that year. And then we had the disappointing loss in 17 in the semifinals. And then in 18, when we made it to the Fargo Dome again to the championship game, we just decided we wanted, focus and concentrate on football. And to be real honest with you, this last year when we this last fall, it never really even came up. I think there was a couple of kids that said, "Are we maybe going to do this?" I said, "No, guys." I said, we want to go down there and focus on winning a football game and kind of take all the other extracurricular out of it.
It's funny you say that because now I remember how awful the weather was. What did you get to Fargo on Tuesday, or when did you get to Fargo this past week for the Dome?
I can't even remember. It's such a blur that we left Wednesday afternoon, and from Bismarck, we practiced in the Golf Dome at Bismarck, and it took us about 4.5, 5 hours that night to get to our hotel in Fargo. It was a treacherous trip, to say the least. And we finally got down there and checked in, so we had the extra night. And I tell you what, the kids really prepared well, and even with that extra day, they stayed focused. We had great practice facilities that we were able to use in West Fargo, and I tell you what, it turned out just fine. But it was an ugly mess getting down there.
I mentioned, obviously, before you came on about A.J. Hines signing. Young man you and I have talked about over the last couple of years. Certainly his stock has gone this way, and it's only going to keep doing that. When was the first time, Steve, you remember seeing him either on the field or the wrestling mat saying, this is a different kind of athlete we maybe haven't had before?
Yeah, I mean, when he had played youth football in Bismarck and Mandan, and in junior high, you knew that you certainly had someone with great size for his age and football intellect. He watched football games on TV. He understood the game, and as he grew through that, and then he ended up being a starter for us right away when he was a freshman, and he's just progressively built himself and up and gotten better. His technique and his strength and his conditioning, and all those things that you need to do to reach what, his ultimate goal for a long time has been to be a Bison football player. I mean, his family are huge NDSU fans. And I mean, this was just one of those things that, this was sort of that goal that he had tucked in his back pocket, and he's always stayed focused to it. And, I couldn't be happier for him that Coach Entz and Coach Hedberg and the staff up there are providing this opportunity for him.
When did you get a sense, and at AJ as well, that the Division I football was a possibility?
I think that at the end of his sophomore year and going into his junior year, you always talk about that jump, I think, that sophomores to juniors make. And he was a good player when he's a sophomore. Don't get me wrong. He was an all-region football player. But, he got more confidence and more leadership started to come out. And that's when I really started to see that drive that was there. And that just progressed through his junior year. And then it was just a straight carryover, on into his senior year, that there was that fire in his belly that this is, he wanted, obviously, number one, to get us to a state championship, but he wants to continue playing football at the next level.
And we had highlights of him right now, Steve, playing defense. He's going to play offensive line in college. I guess, was he more dominant on either side of the ball, or was it pretty even on each side for you?
That's a good question. The deal, I guess I would say with that is, offensively, we could choose to get behind him, right? I mean, we would run the ball to his side, we could trap and pull him and do different things to get in there. As far as when we play defense, eventually we just moved him to the nose position to double A gap it, because teams would just avoid him. They'd go opposite. We would have teams, if he was at a defensive tackle, that would audible the other direction so that they wouldn't run to him. And so, we solved that puzzle a little bit, but he's dang good on both sides of the ball. His heart has always been a little bit about being that offensive lineman. He makes our offensive line calls. He knows our blocking scheme as well as Coach Krinkstead, our offensive line coach. I mean, he's got a great football intellect, but he really likes that offensive line play.
Well, this championship that he got in November, pretty much, that's the third time he's won a title in the Fargo Dome, because he's won 2 state wrestling championships. He's going for a 3-peat this year. And the obvious question, I know you've been asked it, is he a better wrestler or is he a better football player?
Yeah, and my bottom line is he's outstanding at both. Yeah. I mean, you don't get to be a 2-time defending heavyweight champ in the state. You don't see a lot of sophomore kids win a state championship at that weight class. There's usually some juniors or seniors in front of them that are a little bit further along than they are. And yet he's done that in wrestling. I mean, that's amazing. And this opportunity for him, I think it's been, if it's been done before, it's been very rare that we've actually had, back-to-back heavyweight champs. And that's something that certainly is right there on his radar screen that he's working after right now. But, football wise, I think that for AJ, maybe it's a little bit more of that team aspect, that, a little bit more of that leadership deal that kind of fits into that football mode. I mean, we preach team. We're very team orientated program, and to get the kids to buy into that and they understand how important that every person is in this process. And I think that, he really enjoys that. And I'm not going to say he likes one over the other, or he's better at one over the other. He's good at both, and he's great on the mat and he's great on the football field. And I'm just I'm happy for him to get the opportunity to continue his football career.
Steve Kleinjan joining us, New Salem Almont head football coach, as the Holsteins won the state championship. I will say this: the Holstein singlet I've seen is fantastic. That is the best thing out there I've seen.
Well, they have multiple singlets. Is
that right?
Championship matches and the ones they wear earlier. But so you'll see a variety of singlets if you come over to the state wrestling tournament. But yeah, we've Coach Wolding, who else helps me in football, our head wrestling coach. I tell you what, that guy, we've got great coaches out here, Dom. I mean, that guy does a tremendous job with wrestling. You know, they've been runner up here the last few years. He's been the coach of the year in wrestling, I think 3 or 4 times. We just have good coaches working in this program right now that have done a great job with these kids, and we've been really fortunate that way.
I'll just tell a quick story. I tweeted out, I forget, it might have been AJ Wrestling, and I got a shot of his back with the Holstein behind it, and and that thing went everywhere. Like, people who don't know your school, like, where is this? And how do I get one? It blew up on me when I did this a couple years ago at the state meet. It was fantastic.
Oh yeah, we get people that check in all the time that think we've got that extremely unique logo that we have, and how did that come about? Where did that come from? Do people make fun of you with that? Blah blah blah, and all that stuff. And heck, we're proud of it, man.
Absolutely.
I got my Holstein stuff on all the time. I wear it with pride. I got no problem being a Holstein.
I want to add, it's a great segue, because we were showing video earlier in the show of what Cody Mauk is doing down at the Senior Bowl from Hankinson. Cordell Volson, young man from Balfour, who played at Drake Animus. I don't know right now, Steve, if it's gotten any better for North Dakota 9-man football. How much you guys are riding the wave with that, seeing 2 guys that played 9-man that are going to be in the NFL?
I've got a great story with Cody. I coached the Mondack Bowl, the old Montana North Dakota All-Star Bowl. I was one of the coaches when he played in that. And I remember seeing this, this 6'6", kind of skinny kid, playing a tight end. In fact, we even flexed him out at wide receiver once in a while. He had a buzz cut, short hair. He had all his teeth. Everything was good. And then all of a sudden, you look down the road 4 or 5 years, and here's this kid that they moved from tight end to tackle, and he's bulked up to 300 pounds. And in a sense, I think that's the kind of story that gives AJ that hope and that idea that, if you come in and you put the time in and you put the effort in and you buy into what they're doing at NDSU, that you have an opportunity, and that's all you can ask for. And these other 9-man kids from North Dakota, Cordell and Cody, those guys are great examples for these other kids coming up. That the sky's the limit, fellas. The door's been opened now. You got to take the ball from here, but you got a chance. And I just think that those are great stories for kids to strive to achieve. How much for you guys in 9-man, a sense of pride of this, for your coaching brethren in 9-man football, that this has happened over the last couple of years? Well, like I said, I'm very proud of this community, and I'm very proud of this school. And I'm fortunate to live where I do. But the idea here is that this is bison country out here. I mean, I've got very close friends of mine that are season ticket holders, and I mean, we watch the games religiously and things like that. And I respect all of the programs, but I know it's going to be a little bit of a celebration here this afternoon. We're going to do a little signing deal. Nice. And I can tell you what, there are going to be people that are going to be here dressed in their bison gear that are fired up and that are excited, and people talking about, now going to games and hoping to have this opportunity. And we've got to see, of course, how this all plays out. But I mean, that's the energy and the enthusiasm and the excitement of not only Division I, but actually getting to play for a great program like NDSU. I mean, I tell you, I couldn't be happier, honestly, for AJ and for this opportunity. That's well said. All right, I have to leave you with this, because I always ask Zier about travel, because he went from beach to Cavalier. You've done that too. So what is that, the worst trip? What's the longest or worst road trip you've had? Oh boy, I'm Coach Zier. He's always winding. I know. Up. Here's the deal with him though. I'll tell you a story. Like, he gets mad because he's got to travel so far, right? Yep. So he could leave maybe at 11 o'clock or whatever, but the heck with that. They just get up at 8 o'clock in the morning and they get on the bus and they go, so they can stop and eat breakfast and stop and have lunch and do this whole big trip, makes it extravagant. I could go into so many stories. We've roomed multiple times at the Shrine game. I could tell you all kinds of stories about Mike, but anyway, I digress. I we don't have horrible road trips, to be honest. I mean, our location is pretty decent to where, we got to go out to the beach, but that's interstate.
Yep.
We travel down to Wishick, those areas down there. But again, that's not that bad. I really can't. I can't give you the only bad story I can give you is when we went down for the championship game when the roads were horrible. That was the worst. That's the worst trip we've had. But other than that, I mean, we're pretty fortunate with that interstate right here, right by us, and it's able to get us going pretty quickly. So I can't give you a bad story like Coach here. I'm not going to whine and complain.
Let me ask you this though, because I've been beating the drum on this, and I know you got a chance to play at home in the postseason to get to the Dome. How would you feel about playing, because there's turf everywhere now, even on your side of the state as well, about neutral site playoff games to take away bad field conditions? Where would you stand on that?
Yeah, and I understand that, and we've got a field that we're hoping to get redone this year. That by the time we hit November, it's the pasture's been grazed pretty hard. There's not a lot left on the field, and so it's not a great condition. I guess the one thing that I would really miss out of that would be that atmosphere. I mean, our home playoff games are, if you've ever had an opportunity or talked to somebody that's been to them, it's pretty amazing. I mean, we get people that start parking cars like at Monday before the Saturday at the playoff game around the football field.
Love it.
And they keep lining up, and so I would hate to lose that atmosphere. I know there'd be good crowds if we went neutral, if we went into Bismarck and played on a turf there out to Dickinson or whatever it might be. But I tell you what, down deep in my heart, I would really miss that little bit of a home field advantage, a little bit of that idea that, you have to play in that rough tundra and you got to play in that field and still let the chips fall where they may. And we've been pretty dang lucky on our home field and in playoff games.
This was awesome. You knocked it out of the park. So let's do this again sometime soon, okay?
I love with you again, Dom. I really appreciate you having me on.
Appreciate it. Congratulations on AJ, and enjoy a little time off where track gets going, all right?
Okay. Thanks, I will.
Steve Kleinjan, state champion head coach at New Salem Almont, the Holsteins, who won the 9-man championship in the second ever overtime game in Dakota Bowl history. That was good stuff. We're way overdue. Let's take a break. We got up. Jory Collins coming up in our second hour as we roll on a Thursday morning. We're back after this. Welcome back, everybody. Real quick here before we set up and get ready for hour two. Crazy to think of this as we look outside at -20. The AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am begins today. That's the event Tom Hoagie won. He'll begin defense of his tournament championship. He'll tee off at about 10:45 this morning. We'll update you on that in our news tonight, and of course tomorrow on Hot Mike as he goes for back-to-back titles at Pebble Beach. We come back. Jory Collins will join us. NDSU women's basketball head coach Bison Coyotes. We'll preview that. We come back after this on WDAY Extra at Inforum.com.
Is Hot Mike. Hot Mike on the networks of WDAY. Here's Dom Izzo.
Welcome back, everybody. Hour two on this Thursday morning. WDAY Extra, Inforum.com. Remember, tonight we've got Bison women's basketball right here on Extra as the University of South Dakota will be here to take on North Dakota State. Our coverage begins at 7 o'clock on Extra. You can also stream it, Inforum.com or ESPN Plus, wherever you stream your games. You can check it out tonight as the second-place Bison welcome in USD, which is right behind them in the league standings. And our Thursday 10 o'clock guest is, of course, the head coach of the Bison women, Jory Collins, joins us here on this Thursday. Before we talk some hoops, you can certainly brag to the hills about your Kansas City Chiefs getting by Joe Burrow and back in the Super Bowl. So there you go, buddy boy.
I told you a couple weeks ago that's the game I wanted, and we got it. And I didn't know Mahomes was going to be hobbled, but the dude's a competitor, man. I mean, he's just one of them guys.
Yeah, he really is.
You just always feel like your chances are pretty good.
I love how, by the way, all week long they said they weren't paying attention to what's being said, and immediately after the game is over, they ripped the Cincinnati mayor and everybody else in between.
Yeah. Oh, they were. It was funny. The next day I was making breakfast for my boys, and I was like, "You guys are so lucky. You're going to see the Chiefs in the Super Bowl 3 out of the last 4 years."
Yes.
And my oldest is like, "Well, how many have you seen?" I said, "Well, 3 out of the last 4 years." And I'm 44. So don't take this for granted.
What must that be like? As a Jets fan, I can only wonder, man. I just sit there and that must be nice. So
it is.
I bet it is. With a quarterback like that, yeah, I'm sure it's okay.
Yeah, for the next decade, I hope.
Well, I tweeted that out during the end of the game. I'm like, for the rest of us in the AFC or fans of AFC teams, it's Kansas City and Cincinnati and then everybody else. I include the Bills. It's everybody else after that. There's a gap.
Yeah, I love that, with Tom Brady retiring, and then you think about like Phillip Rivers and Drew Brees and the Manning brothers, that kind of era quarterback going out. I mean, yeah, that's who I grew up.
Yep.
It seems like for 15, 20 years, that's who the quarterbacks were. And now there's some young ones now that look like they're going to be every bit of that group and be pretty fun to watch. There's a lot of teams that have some young guys that are pretty good.
There are some dudes, no doubt about it. You got some dudes on your team as the Bison will host South Dakota tonight. I know, obviously, Saturday didn't go anywhere close to where you wanted to go. Would you have preferred to have 2 games to get right back on the floor, or did you need some time off before to get ready for tonight?
I thought it was it was good for us, I think, to be able to, I wanted to get back out there. I always do.
Yeah.
It's when you don't play well, you want to watch it, you want to talk about it, you want to practice about it, and then you want to move on to the next thing as fast as possible. I thought we responded really well this week with film and practice, and we got after it Tuesday morning pretty good, and the response was there the way that this group has responded all year, Dom, and then had really good day of practice yesterday in preparation for tonight, and I'm hoping and expecting us to play pretty good.
I had a chance to visit last week. I was talking with Emily Banky about the win down in Vermilion, and she was telling me how Emily Dietz was emotional after the game. Now one of your grad assistants and obviously you coached her for 3 years after that. Was that surprising that it struck her like that after you guys won in Vermilion earlier in January?
Oh, I mean, I don't think so. I mean, Dom, when you do this and you have as big a heart as Emily Dietz and you put everything you have into something or an organization or a team or your teammates, it feels good when your hard work and commitment to it pays off. I think I told Emily Dietz the first year I got here, I said, I think you and I are going to get on a ladder together before you're done here. And it maybe doesn't happen when she's as a player, but I've tried to keep her around, long enough to make that happen. And I think she's, proud to be a part of, a transition period where we're getting to be at a higher level. But they've whooped us for a long time and badly on a few of them, and we've had some good games against them, but they've had some phenomenal teams here in the last 3 or 4 years. And, for us to just win there, kind of get that monkey off your back, regardless of circumstances, is always a good feeling.
We're playing the video, Jory, from the first game down there, which, I mean, you fought back. You're down late in that game. Just describe the possessions you had late in that game to convert that enabled you to win.
Yeah, we, I remember, I've watched it a bunch here the last couple of days, but, Abby Schulte hit a huge 3. Yeah. We were down 5 with just a couple to go, and I thought that was a possession there where if it would have got to 7, that probably would have been it. But she hit a big 3 in the corner to get it to 2. And then we were able to just play. It was really situational basketball for the last 2 minutes. Stop, score. I think we had a play for Heaven there late. It was able to get, she didn't shoot the ball well that game. I think she was like 1 for 11 from 3, but was 8 of 11 from inside the arc, being able to get to the basket. And she just kind of snaked her way through on that play call and got that thing the way we wanted it on the scoreboard. And then we had to get a stop. They drew up a good play for Larkins. I thought we contested it pretty well. She came up short and we were able to secure the rebound and had to make free throws. So it just, those are games where situationally it really could go either way. You got to make those plays every single time, especially on the road, to get those kind of wins.
The Now, that's in the past. Is obviously it's on to tonight. But is there? And I know I talked to you about this yesterday. Is there a mental reminder, like, okay, we've done this that can help you for tonight?
Yeah, I think we talked about after first round of conference play. Hey, we were able to go 7-2. We lost 2 road games at SDSU, at Oral Roberts. There's no, obviously everybody wants to win every game, but there's no shame in dropping a couple road games in league play. And we talked about, hey, now we've played everybody. We know what everybody is. It's up to us to go out there and try to do that again. Was really the goal. Knowing that, going to UND was going to be tough. Going to Omaha and Denver still and Western and St. Taylor, you have all those road games, but being able to get back to your home floor, you really got to try to take care of business at the Shack. And our players know who we're playing this week. And I know it's the Dakota schools here, 3 in a row that we have with our schedule. But it's the next game and where we're at in the league and what our goals are to finish and where we want to be at the end. These are games that are critical.
You've told me, and you've been proven right here. I'm looking at the home records of teams in the Summit. And I mean, obviously UND still hasn't lost. You haven't lost. The Jacks lost once, and that was to a top 10 ranked team in the country. Why do you think that is this year? Is it just I'm finally paying attention to it? That's how it's played out over the last few years.
Honestly, for some reason this year, I feel like it's just even a little bit more. And I wish I knew the answer. I don't. You can go back and you can say, officiating and all that, but that's not it. I mean, it's not free throws. You can go look at all that. It's just people are comfortable. I think especially in our league, some of the travel is not the easiest to get up and down throughout the Midwest, especially in the winter time where there's weather and all those kind of things. And people have to drive here unexpectedly. All that over the course of time takes a toll on you. As you're going through a really long season. So maybe that has something to do with it, but I really don't know. I just know it's tough to win on the road, and people have been having some success at home, but we also know that could go the other way in a heartbeat. And you gotta walk out on the floor and you got to compete your butt off.
Now, I apologize for the Captain Obvious question, but how different is South Dakota? You lose 3 all-timers. And then I think their best freshman leaves to go to Nebraska. I mean, this is a vastly different team than what people saw in the Sweet 16 last year, but they're still good.
Yeah. I mean, it's night and day. Mostly because of, experience.
Right.
I mean, they still have very good players. Those players most of them were recruited. Several of them we offered, liked. They have talent. What it is inexperience playing together and then a new coaching staff. And I know very well aware of what that feels like and how that is when you show up somewhere and maybe you're speaking a foreign language, in your terminology and style and those kind of things. And that takes time to get that ingrained in people and for them to learn and to accept. My way here was accepted really quickly because there just hadn't been a ton of success before. You're coming in to maybe do it your way at South Dakota, and they're coming off a Sweet 16 and be like, hey, the way we did it was pretty good. So I'm sure there's battles there having to fight, but you got to come in and put your own spin on it, and you got to make it yours. And I know she'll do a great job there as they get more situated, but they're definitely different. You just can't replace, and they were going to be different anyways. I mean, you can't replace those 3 fifth-year seniors who'd played together for 4 years, and the amount of game experience and big-time experience they had was that's a unique situation that pops up every 10 years, 15 years at places like this. SDSU's got it right now. I hope we have it in the next 5-6 years at some point. But yeah, those are special teams, but it never stays that way. There's just too many players and coaches out there for it to stay that way for too long.
I know you knew Walker Demers up in Grafton. She's now starting. I mean, she should be a senior in high school right now, but she's now playing and starting at USD. What kind of factor can she be when you see her out there on the floor?
Well, what I loved about Walker was she played really hard. She was very physical for a high school kid. and really playing really small high school basketball, was a physically dominant, but you could also see that was going to translate to college pretty good. She ended up playing, for North Tartan her last year of summer, and got a chance to play against high level competition, and held her own really well there. So it didn't surprise me, that she was going early, when they had a coaching change at her high school too, and Lori went, left, and but the way she's playing right now, she's just a really physical rebounder. She's got some skill. I mean, she stepped out and made a few threes lately. I mean, it's a great experience for her, but she is young. She doesn't have a ton of game experience, but she has definitely brought a physical presence. They don't have a ton of depth in the post. Obviously starting her as a, probably 18-year-old still, maybe 17, I'm not sure, playing, but she's got a pretty bright future, I think.
I think you already addressed it. Obviously, your team knows it. For the magnitude of what's to come, I'm hopeful. I did this in my commentary on the news last night, that the people around town realized to come to the games. You had a great crowd. I think Minnesota was a great atmosphere. UND, great atmosphere. The people know who's here. That it seems to me that the team is fed off of that when you've had some good crowds here.
Oh, unbelievably so. I mean, our crowds in some of those big games have been great. And I think we were talking yesterday, there's been some momentum swings in some of those games, where we were feeding off the crowd without question. I mean, that just adds a little more giddy up in your step on certain situations, when you can feel that energy and that buzz in there. And it, without question, helps you. I mean, it makes you a better basketball team when you got that, amount of people behind you and yelling for you, and having your back.
How hard is it to, I guess, gauge or not to get too pumped up for this, knowing full well your season honestly comes to 3 days in March in Sioux Falls, not to get too excited and not to get too low, depending on how the next couple of games go?
Yeah, I mean, that's what, when you're outside looking in, Dom, everybody's these games are make or break. And for me, I know they're not. We could go 0-2 this week. We don't plan on it, but that's not going to change how we can play the last 6 games of the year and potentially where we'd even be in our standings at the end going into the tournament.
Correct.
We know where we're at with our program. We know if we had any NCAA tournament aspiration, we're going to have to go win the Summit League tournament. My entire goal this year is that we finish right here near the top. Hopefully going for, we would need a ton of help from SDSU. I mean, they're running away. Their 25 point per game margin in league is ridiculous. But when you look at the tournament, that 2 seed is critical. To be able to have days off and watch who you play, while you're sitting there a couple times is a huge bonus. And I think that would be a terrific goal for our team. Obviously, there's several teams right there all with us that are going to be vying for the same thing. But we got a chance here to get after it and take another step towards that. And that's what we're looking forward to.
It's going to be exciting. Going to be a nice, hopefully a big crowd here both tonight and on Saturday for what should be a couple of really, really good games. Always appreciate the time, especially on a game day, Bet. Thanks for it, and we'll see you later tonight, okay?
Okay, sounds good, Dom. Thank you.
Jory Collins, NDSU women's basketball head coach, joining us here. Bison women and South Dakota coming up tonight. You'll see it on WDAY Extra. Kyle, I'm going to do some producing on the fly. Can we bring up the graphics of the games tonight? We can do the women first if we can. As we mentioned, Bison USD here. The UND women will put their 10-0 mark at home on the line as they'll take on South Dakota State. And Jory's dead on about that, by the way. That is not a misnomer. It's not a incorrect information. The Jackrabbits are beating teams in the Summit League by an average of 25 points. An average of 25. They've not had one close game in conference play. Let me just read you the scores here quick of the games that they've played in the league. All right? They played one close game. They beat Oral Roberts by 3 earlier this season. That game was in Brookings. Then they won by 31. They won by 22. They won by 10. They beat the Bison by 31. They beat UND by 32. They beat South Dakota by 59. They beat Omaha by 7. They beat Denver by 10. They beat St. Thomas by 42. They beat Western Illinois by 33. I mean, come on. I understand the 59-point swing against USD is going to swing that points per game margin of victory, but oh my God, that's silly. And that's the buzzsaw that UND and NDSU have to face. Now, granted, as we mentioned, playing at home is a different deal, but SDSU, it doesn't seem to matter where they have played so far. And again, the only time that the Jackrabbits have been beaten at home was to Creighton, who's ranked in the top 20. The other game they lost to, remember we showed it, was the game right before Christmas time, then when they got top-ranked South Carolina in Sioux Falls, and that game was a 9-point game in the fourth quarter. Here are the other games tonight. We mentioned Bison USD, UND hosting SDSU. This is on the men's side here. The Bison men will go to USD. We're going all over the place. All right. USD, NDSU women, SDSU at UND. Denver goes to Western Illinois, and Omaha is at St. Thomas. The bottom of the league is not great. So, again, if you can play well on the road, you've got a chance to rack up some wins and maybe solidify yourself in that second position. On the men's side, as we mentioned, the Bison men are at USD tonight. That is going to be an awfully tough game. South Dakota, mind you, is coming off a 50-point loss of its own to Oral Roberts on Monday night in Tulsa. So I don't know if they're gassed. I don't know. But there's an opportunity here. UND has not won at Frost Arena since 1995. They have a tall task with the Jackrabbits. Mind you, SDSU also played Monday, eked out a win against Kansas City after losses at Western Illinois and St. Thomas. Speaking of the Tommies, they're at Omaha tonight, and Western Illinois goes to Denver. Remember, Western sits in second in the league standings after their unreal run last week where they beat UND. They beat USD on a buzzer beater and then beat SDSU in overtime, rallying from 22 down. The Leathernecks now have the Denver-Omaha road swing, which many have said is the toughest road trip in all the Summit League just because of travel. We'll see how they pan out. And we'll recap it all tomorrow on the show of a busy Thursday night in the Summit League. Well, we're overdue for a break. We'll take one here. We'll get caught up on a couple things. Remember, really fun story coming up out of Detroit Lakes. We're going to do that at about 10:35. We'll be back on Hot Mic right after this. Welcome back, everybody. Our thanks to Jory Collins for a few minutes there. Just getting updated on a couple things here before we talk with Julie Berntson out of Detroit Lakes. Cool story coming up here in about 5-6 minutes on how social media can be a really cool deal. I lament about it plenty of times. I'm on it a lot and see plenty of negative things out there, but this is a neat story that we're going to tell coming up in about 10 minutes. Just mentioned, obviously, with Tom Hoagie going to be teeing off here in about 15 minutes time. Just looking, little reaction here of what people are saying on Cody Mauch's performance at the Senior Bowl. Again, pretty much rave reviews is everything that's come in so far. Hands down, the guy I was eager to see and it paid off was Cody Mauch, one of the bigger Senior Bowl studs. Right now, again, draft projections are what they are because we still have to do the combine, still have pro days. I think there's more to be said about what happens at the combine than particular pro day. But everything that we have seen would portend that the second round is probably the floor right now for Cody Mauch, which is crazy to say. For some, I know they're having a hard time probably grasping that, considering how this journey has gone from walk-on tight end. And you heard Steve Kleinjan said, who coached him at the Mondak game 7 years ago, to where we're at now. crazy, but that's exactly the case. And it'll be fascinating to see the next month play out, because we're a month away. The combine is happening a month from now in Indianapolis. So that's everybody goes there. I still think everybody goes to the Senior Bowl, but there's more hands-on there. Speaking of which, by the way, Cody's teammate, Nash Jensen, another guy who got invited to an all-star game. He was at the NFLPA game last weekend. He's going to join us on the show tomorrow, chat about his experience of playing at the Rose Bowl. Pretty neat deal. And what's ahead for him. We'll do that coming up on the show tomorrow. Let's take a break. We come back. We'll head to Detroit Lakes, Minnesota, for a really unique story about how the Bison women's basketball team connected with a couple students at Detroit Lakes Middle School. We'll do that when Hot Mike returns right after this on WDAY Extra at Inforum.com. Welcome back, everybody, on a Thursday morning. WDAY Extra, Inforum.com. So we were chatting earlier, obviously, with Jory Collins, Bison women's basketball coach, as NDSU gets set to host South Dakota tonight. And earlier this week, Heaven Hamling and Taylor Brown of the Bison women's basketball team made a surprise visit out to Detroit Lakes Middle School. And, you know, we lament sometimes about how there's too much junk and crap that goes on social media, and we draw our attention to that. This is a really positive story that came about on social media. It's our pleasure to welcome on to Hot Mike Julie Berntson, Detroit Lakes middle school teacher, on a really, I don't even know the right word to describe it, just organic story that came about. Good morning. Thanks for doing this. And just tell us
Good morning.
About you. It's a project for your class that connected with NDSU women's basketball.
Yes. Well, teaching for 14 years, and I've done this dinner essay every year. So it's basically the students have to write an essay about the 3 people they would invite to dinner. And we talk about these could be people past, present, future, fictional, anything. And of course, I get a ton of TikTok stars and YouTubers and Justin Jefferson and all this stuff. And, you know, you're kind of reading 100 different essays. And this one just really stood out. It's from a 7th grade girl named Evelyn, who's just the sweetest. She's a 3-sport athlete, awesome grades, awesome personality, and she picked Heaven Hamling. And as I'm reading through, I'm like, I know that name, you know, and so I'm reading her paragraph and I'm like, well, this is someone I can find on Twitter. And so I thought, you know, what are the chances that maybe Heaven would like write us a letter back? That was kind of my goal. And sure enough, I put it on Twitter. Heaven messaged me right away and was like, I want to talk to this girl. And so I said, here's the school address, write us a letter. And I just kind of waited it out. And then before you know it, NDSU Media picks up the tweet and is like, let's make this dinner actually happen. Wow. So it's kind of magical from there.
So we have the video of what Evelyn wrote. It says, as my first guest for my excellent dinner, I choose Heaven Hamling. She's a fantastic basketball player and plays for NDSU. How she was able to play Division I, or how long she wanted to play basketball, how much work she must put into where she is today. If she ever imagined that one day she would be where she is today, my conversation with Heaven would be the best. So that I saw you tweet it out, and then lo and behold, she and Taylor Brown showed up at school, and the video is just fantastic. So were they in the dark about this, or did they know ahead of time?
Well, if you know middle school girls, you can't surprise them the day of. So we had to tell Evelyn the day before so she could plan everything out and be prepared. And we told her to invite some of her friends. And of course, she has this very close-knit basketball team. Yeah. So there ended up being 4 of them that sat down with these Bison players. And they had the longest list of questions. It was just adorable. It was everything from like, what songs are on your playlist to what are your superstitions for game day? What do you eat on a game day? Like, it was really cool. So
that's fantastic. We're seeing a little bit of the video now of them just sitting around, literally having lunch, which is just fantastic. Yep. So did you stay in the room, or did you watch all this happen?
And the girl, Evelyn's mom, was there too. So she was kind of taking photos. They had photos of the athletes printed out, and the girls got to autograph them. So we were kind of in and out, but it was, you know, middle schoolers, it was kind of this awkwardness of like, awkward tension. So I was there, but then I kind of left and came back too.
When they ended up leaving, and I talked to Heaven about this yesterday. And they even got to shoot hoops too. I mean, that's even got to be just over the moon. What did Evelyn say? What was the reaction afterwards?
I think it was pure shock for several hours. It was a lot of thank yous. This was so exciting. I can't believe this just happened. But we had one of the 7th grade girls even take Heaven on one-on-one. She's like, I'll take you on. And so they had some good basketball time, and they played lightning. And so
Heaven told me yesterday, Julie, that just that's the kind of impact she was, it's National Women in Sports Day yesterday, that she never thought what she could have as a Division I athlete, to have that kind of connection. As a teacher, as an educator, this is exactly what you're hoping for, is to kind of have these kind of connections happen. Just describe that, because this doesn't happen on an everyday occurrence.
No, and just letting those awesome role models know that the eyes are on them. These little kids, they have social media, they follow them, they watch all their videos. I mean, Evelyn literally watches her games like it's film, and she breaks it down, and she tries to do those plays in her 7th grade basketball tournament. So it is crazy for them to see that they are so idolized. And for one Minnesota girl to be looking up to another Minnesota girl who made it to D1, it was just a really cool story and turned into something way bigger than I ever thought it could.
What do you think the impact is going forward for your students after that?
Well, I've already had another student say, Mrs. Berntson, I wrote to George Lucas. So if you could make that happen. So I guess I've got some high expectations to fill.
I'll tell you right now, if that ends up happening, I'll come too. As a Star Wars nerd, I will be there in a heartbeat if that ends up happening.
I know. I said I can tweet him, buddy, but I don't see this going anywhere. So,
and that's what makes this so cool, that something like this could happen. And even as you found out that NDSU was going to come, I'm sure you had to pinch yourself a little bit too.
Yeah. Well, and that just speaks to Heaven and how great she is as a role model, and the NDSU community, that they jumped on this and they're like, let's make it happen. So I grew up an NDSU fan, so it was extra special for me too.
Do you get a sense here that this was a connection that may continue on beyond just what happened Tuesday?
It seemed like it was like, Heaven and Evelyn were like, let's continue in contact and talk more. So I can hope.
How much is basketball part of Evelyn's life?
100%. Yeah. And she comes from a big family, 4 kids. They're all athletes. So very special.
That's really, really neat. And, we were talking about this yesterday with National Women in Sports Day, and I know it's going to be celebrated on Saturday for the Bison game at South Dakota State. To see this, and I've talked about this over the last year, how popular, how good women's basketball is in the state of Minnesota, for kids that age to see players that are doing great things and not just impacting on the basketball floor. I did a story with Heaven a few years ago when the NCAA decided not to have any practices on Election Day, and Heaven was out front of that. She's got name, image, likeness opportunities. I mean, this is major stuff that for kids in Evelyn's grade and age to see, like, this is now possible for somebody like me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it made a lot of goals being set by those kids at the lunch table saying, like, I could play for the Bison. I could go D1. So
now are you a bigger rock star than ever now in your school that this happened?
Yes. And of course, NDSU gave us tickets to Saturday's game, like a whole envelope full of them. So all these kids want tickets. They want to go watch the Bison. So it was exciting.
So how many fans are actually going to be coming from your school then on Saturday?
I would hope there'd be a lot of Laker red in the stands. So
that works out considering they're playing the red team tonight. You can do that. You can do that on Saturday for that. My last question before I let you go, just describe kind of the lasting impact on this, something that was just, this is just, you mentioned it, assignment you do every year, to have this kind of explosion, this kind of reaction to it.
Yes, and I wonder if kids next year are going to choose their dinner guests a little more wisely of like, maybe Mrs. Berntson can make this happen. But anyways, it was a really cool experience and something that Evelyn And those girls that got to shoot hoops and have lunch, I mean, they will remember that forever.
Okay, how often has Adam Thielen been on there? It's got to be like 98% of the time, right?
Adam was a very popular choice. I would say Justin Jefferson kind of outruled him this year. There were lots of those from our Vikings fans.
I'm just trying to think of like DL superstars. There's a few there, you know.
Yeah, I know. We've had some really good athletes.
Kate Smith's a heck of a golfer. I would love. I've talked to her. She played at Augusta a couple years ago. Let's get her on. Right?
Yes, absolutely. And our girls basketball team is having a great season. So
after making it to state last year, which is pretty cool stuff. Julie, thanks so much for the time. Congratulations on this. This is a really, really cool deal. And thanks for making some time for us this morning, okay?
Well, thank you very much.
Good to see you. Julie Berntson from Detroit Lakes Middle School. And we'll have more on this story coming up over the weekend and on Sports Sunday. Just a really, really neat deal. And you saw the video that we played, and shout out to NDSU's media team that was out there that helped us with that. The reaction of the DL students when Heaven and Taylor walked in, that's cool stuff. And, we talk about often on our program about I don't know if peril is the right word, the perils of Division I now with name, image, likeness, and cost of attendance and the transfer portal and all that. And then you see something like this, and Heaven experienced it. Heaven didn't start at North Dakota State. She started at Stephen F. Austin and transferred here, but understands she has the name, image, likeness deal. She's got a couple of them, actually. And to understand the impact and spotlight she has on her. She is the most popular player on the Bison women's basketball team, a successful team, one that has more eyeballs on it than others, and uses that platform in a way to connect with either high school or middle school students like she did earlier this week. That's really cool. That's where you can enhance your college experience in a way that probably never even thought of, I don't think anybody goes to college with the thought of being a role model while you're there. And being a Division I athlete, there are cameras all the time. Especially in this day and age, there is video, there's Snapchat, everything. It's just you are under a microscope, especially here. NDSU and UND, they're the big fish. We don't have pro sports in this state. They are the big deal. And when you get some attention like that, it can go to places you never even thought, like what happened earlier this week out in Detroit Lakes. So cool stuff there, and looking forward to seeing the DL students at the game on Saturday when the Bison host South Dakota State. We will take our final break. We'll come back. We'll wrap up the show and say so long. We'll do that after Hot Mike Raps after this on WDAY Extra at Inforum.com. All right, wrapping up the show here for this Thursday morning. Quick one here. Tomorrow, we mentioned Nash Jensen will be by, former NDSU standout left guard. Started an insane amount of games in a row, 45, something crazy like that. Played 70 games for the Bison during his 6 years. He'll join us tomorrow on the program. Got a couple other potential, nothing confirmed yet, so I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but we know Nash is going to join us coming up on the show tomorrow. Of course, a full recap of all the basketball games going on tonight. Bison men in Vermilion, UND men in Brookings, and the two women's games like we talked about earlier on in the show, as we'll start the real nuts and bolts of the second half of Summit League play as we are closing in on a month out from the Summit League tournament getting underway at the Premier Center in Sioux Falls. We'll be there. Hot Mike is going to be on location. Excited about that. Coming up later on next month. So we're getting there. Tom Hoagie has begun the first round of the Pebble Beach Pro-Am, the tournament that he won last year. He got it started with a great opening round, and he needs a good start. He's playing Pebble Beach today. Remember, there's 3 separate golf courses that they play, and the cut comes after the third round. So there's no cut tomorrow. It comes after Saturday, and we'll see where it is. I mean, we've found out exactly how difficult it is to win on the tour, and Hoagie's already played fairly well so far in 2023, including that third-place finish at the Tournament of Champions to start the calendar year. He'll play Pebble Beach today. Tomorrow he'll play Spyglass, which I believe is the toughest of the three. He tees off at 12:20 tomorrow. And then Monterey Peninsula, that's at 11:25 a.m. on Saturday. I only remember that from the old PGA golf video game that they had Pebble Beach on there, but you had to play all three of them. So that's coming up, and we'll update that throughout the day, both online, inforum.com, and, of course, on our newscast tonight. There is featured coverage on ESPN+. He's not in a featured group, but they have featured holes 5, 7, 12, and 17, so you'll get to see him play there, and we'll have highlights of that, of course, tomorrow. We'll wrap it up on Hot Mic as well as he gets ready for his second round tomorrow. So that's coming up tomorrow also on the show. Let's get you ready for what to watch before we get out of here on this Thursday. We mentioned it's the final day of practices going on at the Senior Bowl, which is about to start at the bottom of the hour. Cody Malkin, the national team, will be out there 11:30 a.m. on ESPNU. We'll see how he does in practice today after a fantastic day yesterday, by all intents and purposes, from what we heard. That's coming up 11:30 on ESPNU. Again, the reminder, the game is on Saturday. That's coming up at 1:30 on the NFL Network. And the Night of Hoops, the Bison men and South Dakota, 7 o'clock tonight on Midco. Bison men are going for the season sweep of the Coyotes. They won in a thrilling game when we were down in Frisco. The Bison rallied to knock off South Dakota with a furious stretch there over the last minute and a half of that game. Can they win on the road in Vermilion tonight? The Bison men are coming off their victory over North Dakota. They start the night in 4th place in the Summit League with a 6-4 mark. Oral Roberts, of course, is running away with it. Then it's Western Illinois and SDSU tied for second. The Bison hold 4th by themselves, a half game ahead of Kansas City. South Dakota comes in at 5-6. Remember, the Coyotes lost by 50 points to Oral Roberts on Monday. We'll see how. I'm sure they're going to be a spirited effort from USD for this game tonight against the Bison. And also on Midcoat tonight, the South Dakota State women taking on UND at 7 o'clock at the Betty. UND is unbeaten at home this year. They are 10-0 inside the Betty. South Dakota State, as we mentioned earlier, is routing teams at record-setting pace. So something's going to have to give in this one tonight. And the Jacks, I mean, they have built off. We talked about this last spring when they won the WNIT after they thought they should have gotten into the NCAA tournament. They go and win the WNIT, and that has springboarded them into this season where they have played dynamite basketball this entire season, tripped up only a couple of times by ranked teams, that if they're able to finish the job and let's say they go unbeaten in Summit League play, then we're looking at a rather high seed, an 8 or a 9 seed for them at the Summit League tournament. The NCAA tournament that comes up in the middle of March. And, of course, they've had success there. The Jacks made it to the Sweet 16 in 2019 before USD did it last year. That's, again, the part that should be reiterated, what Jory Collins is talking about trying to aspire and try to get to, is that's the benchmark that has been set in this conference. 2 teams over the last 4 years have made it to the Sweet 16. I don't know if any other mid-majors in women's basketball can claim that. I don't think any. That's the bar that is there and the challenge that lies for the NDSU women. And they've got a nice framework. They really do. I think you look at the players they have and the ones that are coming. I think we've interviewed all on the show for next year's class especially, including West Fargo's Mariley Simon being one of them. The pieces are there. If they can keep them, that's the big thing. In this day and age, people are going to start seeing Elle Evans out there like, how in the world is she still playing in NDSU? That's the difficult part in Division I basketball these days. Thanks to our guests today, to Steve Kleinjan, Jory Collins, and Julie Berntson. If you missed any of our show, you can podcast it later today at Inforum.com. We'll see everybody at the Shack tonight for USD and NDSU, and back here tomorrow on the big show to wrap up the week on Hot Mike on WDAY Extra and Inforum.com.